Hello and welcome back to Path to Uni, part of the Southampton Sessions podcast series. I'm Sam, and today we're talking about one of the biggest decisions you'll make before starting university: where you're going to live. We're here in the Highfield Campus studio, and this episode is all about student accommodation. What different options are really like, what to think about before you apply, and what to expect, and how to make your space feel like home. We've gathered the questions students ask every year, the ones that come up in the forums, inboxes, and the ones we get asked at the open days. And we're putting them to the people who've lived it and know how the process works inside out. Joining me are Jean, who started in Wessex in his first year, alongside accommodation experts Karl and Becky, who will be helping us unpack how accommodation works and what you should know before making your choices. So whether you're weighing up your options, waiting on offers, getting ready to move in for the first time, you're in the right place. Let's get to it, Jean. What's our first question?
Yeah, so we get quite a few questions, but I suppose the biggest and most common question that we do end up getting from prospective students is sort of what's available, what is in Southampton for them?
Okay, yeah, so good question. We have a range of options within our halls of residence. So in total, we own over 6,000 rooms within our halls of residence spread across 7 different hall sites. In addition to that, sometimes we partner up with private hall providers as well to offer even further additional options. So in regards to that, there's lots of information about what's on offer on our website, and we have video tours of hall sites and things like that to get an idea and a feel for each of the different sites. But just to kind of run through briefly now what we currently have. So in total, we own 7 different halls of residence. We have one in Winchester, which caters for the Winchester School of Art. That's Erasmus Park. So that offers around 360 ensuite rooms at a particular hall site. So students, studying in Winchester, that's probably the most convenient one for them. Then within the city of Southampton, we've got a range of different options. Also to highlight, we also have self-catered and part-catered accommodation. So just to start with our part-catered, that's Highfield Hall. So that's one of our smaller hall sites, and that offers 180 rooms at a particular hall site, both en suite and ones with shared bathrooms. So that's one of our smaller hall sites. But then to go to the other side of the scale, one of our largest sites is Glenair, or our largest site is Glenair. That's over 2,000 rooms at a particular hall site, spread across a number of different blocks and buildings, offering a range of different room types. Our next largest is Wessex Lane, so that's around 1,500 rooms at that particular hall site. They're all kind of around the kind of general Highfield campus area, but our next largest is Mayflower Halls, which is right in the city centre, so it offers something different yet again. There's over 1,000 ensuite rooms at a particular hall site. It's city centre and 3 high-rise blocks. So again, there's some really good views over the Solent and Southampton from those upper floors. So again, offers something different in terms of location and the kind of style of building that's available. Then we've got kind of coming out of the city centre a bit, but kind of closer towards Avenue Campus and Southampton Common area. We've got Archers Road Halls, which is around 400 rooms spread across 2 different blocks there. And then we also have City Gateway Halls, which offers 360 ensuite rooms, a bit like Mayflower. It's kind of high-rise building. And that's not too far from Wessex Lane Halls. And so they all offer something different in terms of the kind of categories. The last few I mentioned, they're all self-catered. So in terms of the actual setup within the halls, you have your own individual room, which is yours, but you'll be in a kind of along a corridor, and you'll have a shared flat kitchen. But as I say, we have both ensuite rooms where you've got your own bathroom, but we also have flats where you have shared bathroom facilities. And again, they are kind of individual cubicles, so you get your privacy and everything like that as well. So there's a number of options in that regard. So yeah, lots to think about, lots to take in terms of locations and things like that. Wherever you live in our Southampton halls, you get E-Link bus pass, which gives you unlimited travel on E-Link service. So it's really easy to get to your halls, to your lectures, but you can also use it to get around town generally. In terms of other options and what's available, we also offer some kind of other options in terms of we offer quiet flats, female-only flats, LGBTQ plus flats, and also alcohol-free flats. And so there are other additional options that you can choose. And so just if that makes your experience living in halls more enjoyable, or makes you feel more comfortable, you can do so. One thing I always like to highlight, particularly regarding the LGBTQ plus flats, is that some from that community feel more comfortable living within a flat with others from that community, and it makes their experience better. But that's not for everyone, and wherever people live in our halls, as I say, we've got a wide variety of people within our halls from all different backgrounds, and it's a really good opportunity to meet people. So we expect people to be kind of accepting and tolerant of everyone within our halls, and it's a really good kind of community atmosphere across all those different hall sites. So that's just kind of like a brief overview of what's on offer and lots to choose from.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of variety. And so I suppose a lot of it sort of comes down to research and kind of finding what's best for you. So like, for example, like maybe being near a campus or studies, like what sort of stuff is there like around that, like with halls, can make it easier to get to?
I think one thing to consider is obviously you're here to get a degree and to study,
Cool.
but you actually spend comparably less time in lectures and seminars than you do, living your university life.
Yeah.
So it's important to check where you are going to be studying. You might be at our Avenue campus if you're studying humanities. You might be doing an oceanography degree. So you might be down by the docks, which means living in the city centre might be more convenient. So it's worth considering that, but then also thinking about, what are my must-haves within my room? Do I want to share a bathroom? Do I want an ensuite? Do I want maybe a small double bed rather than a single bed? And really considering those options as well. But there's lots going on at the University of Southampton. We've got so many societies, lots of sport. If you're very active, then potentially you want a site that has a gym. Mayflower's got a gym on site included within the rent. We've also got Wessex Lane is right next to a water sports centre. So there's really lots going on that you can get involved in. And Southampton is such a beautiful city as well. So if you want to enjoy that nature and the wildlife, we've got lots of green areas. We've also got a really lively nightlife and lots of part-time jobs as well within the city centre. So there's really lots to consider. And I think getting a checklist together of what's important to you is probably what would be my first priority. And then going to our website and having a look at those options, breaking it down by the hall sites and looking into the rooms that are available at each one.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I saw a stat the other day of how many different countries are represented in all of our halls of accommodation.
We have, we're not just, obviously, we don't just have UK students, but again, we have students from all over the UK, but all over the world, international university. So it's a really good opportunity to meet people. And that community aspect of living in halls is a big element of the experience. And again, we have lots of activities and events throughout the year that we run in addition to everything that the Student Union does and other societies and clubs that people can get involved with. So yeah, it's a really, as I say, living in halls, you are part of a community. It's a really great opportunity to get to meet people. And also we don't group people by course or anything. So you'll get to meet people from all over the university. And it's, as I say, when people come in, quite often they're quite nervous saying, oh, I don't know anybody. But because everyone's in that same situation, again, people are, I think, particularly in those first few weeks, are very more outgoing and getting to know people. And so because of the way we do things, we have events and activities, so it's a great opportunity to meet people. You get to meet people within your accommodation, but then because, as I say, we don't group it by course or anything, people will get to know people through people on their courses. And so it's a really good opportunity, as I say, to get to know people throughout the university. And that social element is very much a big part of living in halls and being at university. So obviously your studies are important, but there's so much more, and it's a good learning experience, but also it can be a good cultural experience as well. So living in halls, I think, is a very good experience, and we try and do as much as we can to help facilitate that, as I say, with events, activities and all those kind of things as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think living in halls for me was really important because some of my best friends are from completely different courses that I never would have engaged with otherwise, and I now live with them as well. So I definitely recommend sort of going into halls. You get to experience like what other people go through, their courses, and sort of you get to see different backgrounds from life as well, because where you've grown up might not necessarily be where someone else has grown up, and it gives you a lot more sort of perspective on what to expect when you go into the real world. Because especially when you're back at home, it's quite sheltered. Like you know your social group, you know who's around you. You come to uni, it's completely different. And I myself definitely try to embrace it as best I can. And I think that it's an amazing opportunity to see all these different cultures, all these different people. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. I couldn't agree more that you get so much variety.
I must admit, I used to work in the allocations, the teams that we'd like actually doing the booking, and kind of when you book things in, you kind of thought, oh, actually, obviously we're putting people in rooms that they've booked, but sometimes you kind of think, oh, just by putting two people together by chance, lifelong friendships, we even get people who end up getting married or become business partners or things just from meeting in halls. So yeah, it's kind of, it is really amazing kind of what can come from that initial kind of first meeting, or just, as I say, those kind of being allocated in the same flat as somebody or getting to know people through living in halls. Yeah.
I think on that, the most important thing in my opinion is try and like embrace it. Say hi to everyone in your flat. Say hi to people in other flats. I remember one of my now best friends was in the flat across from me, and he came out on, I think, the second day, knocked on everyone's doors in our building and was like, "Hey, I'm here, like, come say hi, we're gonna go out tonight," and ended up like bringing so many people together. And I could not recommend that more, because it creates such a sense of community. Because then even when you're going to do your washing at Wessex, like you're walking over, you see someone, you're like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" It really does create like a massive community vibe. And it's one of the things that I loved about being in halls, is that sense of community, and the sense of seeing someone who you've only met once, but still being like, "I'm new here, you're new here, like, hi." And it definitely was a really exciting experience.
Which halls were you at?
I was at Wessex. So I got the cheapest option at Wessex, and it was perfect for me. I got there on the first day and was like, right, let me grab a fridge space and settle in. And then all my friends sort of started to come in. But yeah, I think the university did a great job to sort of make it easier to move in, even though it's like a very daunting experience overall. I think they did a very good job with that.
I stayed at Glen Eyre, and I loved how it's quite close to campus, but it's slightly uphill. So on a bike, it's perfect, because you can just get out of your accommodation and whiz down straight onto campus for a lecture. So I can see why some prospective students get a bit bothered whether the accommodation is on campus or not, but I actually prefer it slightly off campus, because you get to see more of the city.
Yeah.
And, you know, even that walk with your friend to campus twice a day, that's some sort of socialising, you know, and we always had good chats walking up and down that hill. So, yeah, it's quite nice.
I definitely agree with that. Like Wessex being out the way as well, like especially when you sort of get friends from the different accommodations and then you go over to theirs. Sometimes it's nice having the big sort of like large scale accommodation, because you've got the bigger washing. On Wessex, you have like that social room. There was a pool table there, and that's great. But then also having that sort of smaller community, I imagine, brings a lot more people together and sort of allows you to bond in a way which the bigger ones might not necessarily allow you to.
I mentioned Archers Road earlier, and we, as a student, we did some kind of virtual events with a few years ago, and he was saying again, because it was a smaller hall, they all got to know each other. Basically, there's two buildings, about 200 rooms in each, and they got to know everybody. And so again, that's a really good community spirit, and they just see each other out and about all the time. So yeah, it's really good. I think, as I mentioned, I think it's such an important part of living in halls.
Yeah. I love being able to go outside and see someone from my halls that I haven't seen maybe like in 3 or 4 months, and be like, "Oh my God, like, how are you doing?" Like, it's so, yeah, like you're alive, you're here. And it's always really nice, because I've actually got a catch up with one of my friends like in a little bit, who I haven't seen since we moved out of halls. And I think it does show that even those sort of friendships from halls that might not necessarily be your primary friends, they still do remain like part of your friendship group. And when you do see them, it's always such a nice experience. I think that's a massive benefit of being in halls, to be honest. Essex had a pool table every day, pretty much after lectures. I would like go there. I would revise in like the back bit for a little bit, and then I'd message one of my friends when I got, had enough studying, to say the least, and I would just say, "Hey, come over, play pool," and we'd stay there for like 2 hours. And you'd meet other people who'd be like, "Hey, like, could we play with you guys?" And again, that creates that sort of friendship that you don't really get anywhere else. Like, sure, on a night out you might meet people, but when you're in halls and you go and sort of play pool with someone, you actually get to chat with them, you get to bond with them in a way which does create quite a really nice friendship. And then that I often find leads to other friendships and further.
I think that's one of the nice things of living in halls, is having that opportunity where it doesn't always have to be an organised event or something. It's just hanging out with people, and it's just quite nice, because there's no pressure to have to do anything, but you're just chatting, getting along, and just sometimes it's just those spontaneous things that end up being most enjoyable. And within halls, I mean, you've mentioned like the common rooms. All of our hall sites have common rooms, and it is one thing that actually it's a shame they don't get used more than they do, because they've all been kind of recently refurbished, and they're all nice kind of multi-use spaces. So you've mentioned like the pool, the table tennis, but they've got like seating and booths, and when we have kind of on-site events, we will host them in those areas. But they're really good spaces, as I say, we don't want people to feel like they're confined to their room or their flat kitchen when they're in halls as well. Yeah. And so these spaces have very much been made with that in mind. And like we said, Glenn, also there's like a bookable cinema room that can be used, and people can use it for gaming, things like that. So there's lots of opportunities, I say, to just have those kind of enjoyable experiences, but as I say, these spaces on your hall site to make use of. And again, at Glen, I don't know when you were there, but again, there's outside barbecues, but there's just picnic benches and things like that. And it's just nice, particularly we notice in the kind of spring was particularly sunny this year, that everyone kind of, just to make their studying more interesting, will go out and study outside, or just if they want to chill out or just have a picnic or something. And it's just really nice to see it. And again, it's that kind of community aspect of living in halls. So there's lots of great kind of facilities, and we try and make sure that they're kept up to date and used and utilised as much as possible, because I think it's a big kind of aspect of living in halls and another benefit.
I'm going to pivot to a slightly different topic. What about halls availability? Because I'm sure there'd be some students out there worrying about, will I get my first choice, that sort of thing. Can you guarantee accommodation, and what if someone doesn't get their room?
So as I mentioned earlier, if you apply get your application before the 1st of July of whatever year you plan to start, then you'll be covered by accommodation guarantee. So first year undergraduates do that, and it just gives you peace of mind, get your accommodation, or you'll get an offer of accommodation. In the application, you get to put 5 preferences. You can put a maximum of 7. And as I say, our team worked very hard to make sure that you actually get one of those preferences. So again, we kind of then look back each year, but over the last few years, we've always been around kind of 80 to low 90% people have got one of their first 3 preferences. And also, if there's any additional needs, so if a student has any medical needs or anything like that, then obviously we would prioritise that. So we do have rooms that have adaptations, or if someone needs an ensuite or ground floor room or something along those lines, our team work very closely with the student disability inclusion team to kind of make sure that people get the accommodation that meets their needs. We want everyone to be comfortable and have an enjoyable experience here. And so again, if we know about specific preferences or specific needs, then we put a lot of effort into that. So if we can't give exactly what people need, then we'll look for trends in the application. What I would say kind of generally across all of our halls, yes, we have different room categories, we have different blocks and things like that, but within the rooms, I'd say the standard is kind of very similar in terms of you get a desk, you get a kind of office chair, you get a bed, storage and things like that. So there's certain things that you expect wherever you're in halls. And we hope that wherever you live in the halls, you'll have a really, enjoyable stay. You've got everything you need to have a comfortable and kind of sociable and enjoyable stay with us. So yeah, we put a lot of effort into that. If there are instances where people have moved in and then they're like, actually, this isn't for me, or this isn't the room type I wanted, then we do have things like room transfer process, or we can do supported room moves if needed. But we always say when people move in, give it a chance, because quite often, as we've mentioned in terms of making friends and stuff, people move in, their first experience is, actually, this isn't what I wanted, but then they get to make their friends within the flat, and actually then all of a sudden they're like, actually, I'd rather stay with my friends, and actually I've got the things that I need. So I say we do put a lot of effort in. I can't say that everyone was always happy, but I say in those rare instances where people move in and not happy, then again, we can do room transfers, or as I said, we quite often find people do change their mind because they've made friends, they've got their connections there, and then actually that's more of a priority to them at that point. So, as I say, wherever people live in our halls, we hope they have an enjoyable and comfortable stay. So
about half of our hall sites are located a little bit further away from the campuses and from the city centre, so you get that immersion in nature, and there's birds around. You might see some foxes in the evenings. Someone told me the other day they'd seen a badger before and things like that. So it's you do get to immerse yourself in a world that isn't just that university life.
I think that mental health is a very important thing, and at university it's a very stressful time. Moving into accommodation can be quite stressful, and having these green spaces can actually be really beneficial, just to sort of go, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk, then you can walk around this lovely green space. I think that's really important, and for me it definitely has helped a lot, especially with my mental health. And Riverside's gorgeous as well. To be able to walk down there, which is just 5-minute walk from accommodation, it is really a massive benefit, I would say.
Have that balance, don't you?
Exactly, yeah.
Go into the city centre and you can experience that kind of hubbub of city life, but also you can get away from it all.
Exactly. I think that's one of the nice things, because we are within the city. You get to experience living in the city and what's around it. You're not, if you, and again, there's lots of nice things about being all on one campus, but then again, it's just kind of, you can become quite insular,
Yeah.
whereas there's lots of things. And then again, there's lots of nice spaces around Southampton as well. So
Definitely.
I know on Wednesday afternoons, well, I assume it's the cycling team or the societies, quite often they meet near Glen, and then they go off around kind of the South Downs or some of the nice, or the New Forest and the nice areas around Southampton as well. So it's nice having that option, those opportunities to kind of, experience the city, experience what's around the city and the surrounding areas as well.
So, what I remember being quite nervous about the application process, never done something like this before, going to uni, all that. So, how does the application process work, and what are the sort of deadlines that people watching should be aware of?
Okay, so we understand it can be quite daunting, and particularly there's a lot to think about. And so we've also already gone through all the options that are available. So then actually, how do you actually apply for them? So we try and make it as convenient as possible. So our application process, it's not exactly the same day every year, but you're looking around kind of late March, early April time it will open. And the one kind of key date is the 1st of July. So as long as you get your accommodation application by the 1st of July of whatever year you're planning on starting, you'll be covered by our accommodation guarantee. So basically our accommodation guarantee is, again, something there just to give you peace of mind that you'll be able to secure accommodation with us. And it covers both if Southampton is your first choice, but also if it's your insurance choice as well. So if Southampton is your second choice, but you might end up coming here, just to give yourself that peace of mind and take all the stress out of it, you can apply, and you'll still be covered by accommodation guarantee. If you then don't end up coming here, you're not covered by anything, you're not liable for anything financially. So there's nothing to risk, and it's free to apply. If you know what you want to apply for, it can take as little as 10-15 minutes. It's all done via an online portal, and you have to put a minimum of 5 preferences, but maximum of 7. And it's all done, say, online, and it outlines all the sites and the room types available, those particular hall sites. So we try and make life as easy as possible for you. So around the time that applications go live, we have virtual events that people can, again, if they've got any questions, or again, sometimes you've been to an open day or a visit day, but it can be a few months ago, to refresh your memory. And so we have virtual events that are also recorded so people can catch up if you can't attend it live. Try and go through the whole process of how the application process works, but again, go through your options, and we have students available as well. So we try and support our students throughout, from pre-arrival right through to the application process. Once your application's in, a few things I highlight: it's not first come, first served. So it doesn't matter if you get it in 2 minutes before the deadline, you're still covered by accommodation guarantee. You're still treated exactly the same. And then we allocate rooms based on the preferences that you've put in your application. Our occupancy management team do a lot of hard work in terms of making sure that you obviously get one of your preferences. And again, each year we kind of get a very high percentage of people who get one of the first 5 preferences. But if we can't match exactly what you want, then we'll look for kind of trends. Have you gone for the different room types but the same site? Have you gone for all en suite but different sites? And try and see what the kind of thing that you're looking for, what things you kind of main things you are looking for, within your application. Yeah, so it's all done online, and then you get email reminders, and when you get your offer, you'll be able to accept that online, and it'll outline kind of the contract length, the fees, and breaks it down into installments for you. Just everything's laid out for you, and everything's made clear. And as I say, we try and hopefully the way we do it makes life really convenient, takes all the stress out of it, and it just gives you peace of mind to know that you've got accommodation secured with us. And our accommodation guarantee covers all first-year undergraduates. So again, as long as you get that application before the deadline, you're all sorted, and you'll know you'll get somewhere to stay and start your university experience.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important is going to see the halls. That for me was massive. Like being able to actually go in, see all the halls, see what's sort of going on was really helped me decide what I wanted. Because on the virtual tours, they are great, and they help you, remind you sort of what you are looking for. But actually being able to see what the rooms look like, what the kitchen looks like, it sort of gives you a different perspective and really allows you to realize, okay, well, I wouldn't mind having a double bed, but actually the single beds are perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to, I think, picture yourself in one of these rooms if only you've seen pictures.
Yeah.
Obviously, not everyone can come to a visit day, but if you can, I highly recommend it. And you might realise that actually those preferences you had aren't that important.
Yeah.
I know when I went to university, I didn't come to Southampton, but I was set on having an ensuite. And then I saw the shared facilities and I was like, actually, these are really good.
They're pretty good, aren't
And maybe this will help build my confidence. It made me become better friends with my flatmates because we had conversations about, oh, what time are you up in the morning, when are you using the showers and things like that. So those visit days are very important if you can make it to one. We tend to open up Glen Air, which is really good to see lots of different types of rooms as well. So if you've got a lot of options that you're debating between, that's the time to really see it in person.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think also the shared accommodations actually, with the shared ensuite bathroom is actually really good. In my head, I was picturing this sort of like dingy looking shower, but when you get there, it's quite nice. Like, and I think one of the biggest and driving factors for me is the fact that you don't have to clean the shared shower. There are cleaners who will do it, at least on Wessex. And that for me was really useful because I do nursing, and so I don't have a great deal of time on my hands, especially when I'm on placement. And so it allowed me to not have to stress as much about making sure that I'm constantly cleaning something that I'm using. But yeah, I definitely think that it's a lot better than what I was expecting. It's been like a really nice experience, to be honest.
I think a lot of people have this fear that it's like some sort of like old PE style, like communal
Medieval.
shower room, and you're all just lined up in there. And but actually, you get individual cubicles, you get your privacy, and unless you're very fortunate, it tends to be you're sharing with a certain amount of people, but it's very similar to what most people experience at home.
Yeah.
It's very with your family, so it's just that same kind of setup. And I say, unless you're very fortunate, very few people all have their own ensuite at home and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just same kind of thing. And if some of the ratios at so for example, one of the flats at Wessex Lane, there's a number of bathrooms within the individual flat, and so you're looking at 2 to 3 people per bathroom, so it's not a lot of people.
I think as well, because you are communicating with those 2 or 3 people that you are sharing that bathroom with, then you end up getting to know them better
You definitely.
and building those connections, and then it means that you're going to be friends in the future, and you might decide that actually they're who you want to live with in future years.
Yeah, it definitely helps form an opinion, like especially if someone's using the bathroom and you talk about like, oh, I would like to use it at this time, and then they end up using it constantly at that time. There's definitely been a few conversations I know from my experience in halls about showers and sort of when everyone needs to shower. And I 100% agree with you. I think it does create that sort of bond between people who you're closer to, because then also you can message them and be like, oh, this person's using the shower again when I said I wanted to. But no, I definitely agree.
It's a helpful little preview, because when you go into future years, if you're looking at moving into a shared house, sometimes quite good know to what people are like with communal areas.
It is very.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that one.
So they've had their own ensuite, and then you move in, and actually they're not leaving this bathroom in the best state, are they?
Yeah.
So yeah.
To be fair, I got lucky. They were quite good. I only shared a bathroom with 2 others, and I do share with more than that at home. So for me, I wasn't that bothered about an ensuite, but some people are. So I kind of get the balance. But I remember in my first year, we had the kitchen inspections. Did you have? They're
yes.
still there, aren't they?
Yeah, so we have kitchen and inspections, and throughout the year we also do room inspections. There is a kind of like cleanliness element to that, but there's also just general kind of health and safety, maintenance, just making sure that the accommodation is in the standards we expect. Just make sure that everything's working. Again, it's surprising sometimes. Again, you can report maintenance items via an online tool, Plan On, and so you can report things without even leaving your room. But when we do room inspections, it's amazing. Sometimes someone's light's not working in their room and they just haven't let us know, and we can get that sorted for you. So it's just those kind of things. And so they're not, we give you notice when we're coming round, and so the kitchens are kind of scheduled in throughout the year, and then when we do room inspections, we give you notice when we're going to be coming. And so it's just a kind of general standard check to make sure everything's clean, everything's working as it should. And if we need to offer any support or anything to anyone in terms of, say, maintenance or whatever it is, then we can do so. So they are kind of throughout the year, but just to make sure everything's kept in good shape.
It does very much force people who might not necessarily have the experience with cleaning their own home. And I think that goes back to sort of people come from different backgrounds. Not everyone has to sort of help clean the kitchen or help clean the bathroom. And it does come down to just being like, hey, like, could you give us a hand with that? And having that sort of shared experience can really help a lot of people adjust to what it's like living with others and not living at home. I know for myself, I'm a bit of a clean freak, and so I very much like everything to be kept nice and tidy. And it also then helped me make my expectations more realistic. Like, it's not going to be clean 24/7, and that's okay. But then also helped others be like, could you maybe step up the
Yeah.
cleaning like a tiny bit here? And it does create like it might create a bit of tension in the moment, but overall it creates like a better person to live with.
I think as well, it's key to remember that people have different expectations
Mhm.
moving into halls. And like you say, it gives you the skills to not only understand that person, but to be able to communicate better with them. And that will help you in future years. Obviously, we have support systems here. If you ever find that you are struggling with a flatmate and
Yeah.
things aren't as clean as they should be, we can help you kind of facilitate that mediation and have those discussions. But in future years, you may be in a private house, and we won't be there. So this is the time to do it, when you're in halls and building those connections with people and learning how to communicate best.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we do a lot of work to make sure, as I say, I think because halls, we're kind of a transition from, many people haven't lived away from home before. And so I think if we do our job properly, then we create a nice smooth transition from living at home to living at halls, coming away to uni, and then again, hopefully benefits for future years as well, as you,
Yeah.
as I, when your accommodation options for future years, whether you move into uni house or whatever it may be. So yeah.
And those students at home can almost make that transition a bit smoother by maybe like, for I remember me, I just started cleaning the house at home a bit, or cooking my own meals myself, I did that for months before I came to uni. And then that made the adjustment a bit easier, getting used to that independent living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know some people don't have that opportunity as well. So we have things like a cookery school that runs with our catering team. So you can book a session and go and learn how to make a new meal. And then you add that recipe to your repertoire. It teaches you like knife skills and things like that. And then by the time you've finished your time with us, hopefully you'll be an excellent cook. I still struggle making pasta, so I'm not one to talk, but it's a really good opportunity to build those skills for future years as well.
I think that's a very important thing, is those sort of like skills that you, like myself, I kind of just assumed that people would come in with. I very much I enjoy cooking, so I cooked a lot before. I made sure that I sort of cleaned my room. That was always like, all the bathroom, that was like my responsibility at home. But for those who don't have to do that, I would highly recommend it, like you said, because it does set you in that mindset. And like you, I upped the level at which I was doing that, and I think that massively helps.
And that especially helps if you've got an ensuite, because
Mm.
while you have cleaning teams that are there to support with the communal areas, you're in charge of keeping your room tidy and your ensuite
Yeah.
tidy. And it can very quickly get out of hand. And then it's a bigger job, whereas like maintaining these things is definitely preferred, I
Yeah.
think.
100%, I agree. And I think when you do come to halls, preparing a couple recipes, something as simple as spag bol. Like, I think I ate copious amounts of spag bol in my first year. Spag bol beans on toast were like my go-to staple meals, and just being able to know how to make them well
Mm.
is such an advantage. It really does help a lot, because then you can just bulk make it and whack it in the freezer. And then if you had a long day at lectures, you're tired, you don't want to cook anything. Takeaway is obviously extremely expensive. I've got something healthy and easy in the freezer. Let me just bang that out, put on some pasta, and then there you go. Like, it's so much easier, and I really highly recommend anyone to sort of make those sort of meals beforehand and learn how to do it.
Did either of you end up having like flat kitchen dinners and things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved my flat and my floor. So my floor got on really well. So at Christmas time, we all kind of contributed like one item to Christmas dinner. And then we all piled into one flat and managed to just about cram us all in. And we got to kind of have like a nice little photo of our whole floor together. It was very cramped, but it was really nice because it sort of created that community within the floor. And then also just my flat, we did a pancake day. And so we all kind of got together, like contributed a little bit of ingredients each. And then one of my flatmates sort of made the pancakes, and it was really nice. We've got photos on our house wall now of that. And so it's really nice to be able to remember those sort of times and look at it and think, oh, I remember when we did that. That was great fun. And yeah, so there were a couple little bits and pieces like that throughout time where we were able to get together as sort of like kind of like a little family almost, which was really nice. But yeah, with accommodation as well, like one thing that I will say, you do not need to bring everything from your house. Please don't, like, if I can give one piece of advice, you do not need 6 kettles
Yeah.
in one flat.
And we also provide microwaves now as well. So you've got a kettle,
Exactly.
you've got a microwave, and you never know, your flatmate who you become best friends with might have a full set of pans.
Hmm.
You don't need to buy your own set of pans.
Exactly.
I think we've obviously got loads of shops in Southampton. We've got, all the big major stores and places that deliver as well. We've got post rooms and everything on site, so you can have things sent to you. And, if you wanted them delivered by Amazon, they could arrive next day and be dropped off in one of the lockers.
Yep.
So you can get things quite quickly. So just see the lay of the land when you get here and go from there. Take the essentials. That's what we say.
100%. Me and my house got there. No one brought a kettle, which was a bit of a surprise. I was expecting at least 3 people to. But then we all literally looked on, I think it was Argos or something, and saw that there was one for like £6. And we were like, should we just split it and just get a kettle for the house? And we did, and it was fine. Like, I think it's so easy. I know I definitely did, to bring everything with you on your first trip. And it's really stressful because it's like, what if I don't have this? What if I don't have that? What if I don't have this? It's all right. You can take a breath. There will be opportunities where you can go out and get stuff. You meet your housemates. Like you said, maybe they have a whole set of pans and they're like, oh no, you could just use mine. It's so much easier. Also, you do not need like 6 rice cookers or 6 air fryers. They take up a lot of space. I know from Wessex, you don't have the largest amount of space in your kitchen. And so you have to be very smart with where you put the countertop appliances. Being patient and being smart with what you bring down will make a massive difference to sort of how you also then bond with your housemates.
We've also got a swap shop at Wessex Lane. So people donate things when they move out. And then you can always go in there and see if there's anything that fits your needs as well. So that's really handy.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Got a kitchen scale from there at some point, which was amazing. Needed
The
that.
kind of thing that you probably wouldn't have brought when you
Oh,
first
definitely
went to university. Yeah.
Yeah, it's those sort of things that kind of slip your mind, and then
Yeah.
you get halfway through and you're like, oh, I want to make something. And then you look in your cupboard and realize you don't have any of the stuff that you need to make it. So you pop down there and there's like a spatula, a scale, and you're like, wonderful, I've got everything I need now.
And we try and provide information prior to arrival. You said nobody brought a kettle, so
Yeah.
let me some of our messaging get through in terms of things like that. But yeah, again, colanders, things like that. There's the amount of things that people bring, and then they take up space, as you say. But then, so yeah, and also I know this doesn't apply for so much maybe for international students, but many people do will pop home at various times, so don't feel like. It's not like, right, I need to get everything right this first time. I can never get anything else in again. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's try not to overthink it. Just get those essentials in. And then
And we do have those post rooms as well. So if you've left something at home, your family, as long as it's not too big, can send it down for you. And then you don't need to make that journey sort of midterm as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, on the other extreme, I remember one intake weekend we had to stop a parent getting a washing machine out the back of a van.
Oh no.
And we were like, no, there's laundries on site. There's nowhere to plumb it in anyway.
Oh my gosh. On that point, at Wessex, a lot of the washing is they have their own sort of cleaning built in, detergent.
Yeah.
And so I ended up sitting with a bottle of detergent in my room for like almost the whole of first year because I didn't realize.
Yeah.
But that was really useful because that's like a massive cost that I kind of didn't take into consideration.
All of the laundry is included in your fees.
Yeah.
So I think that just takes a bit of pressure off when you're moving down. And like you say, you don't end up needing the detergent. Obviously, if you've got special requirements, we do have some machines where you can add the detergent, but it's an extra cost that you don't need to think about, and you can just go put a load of washing in when you need to, and then you're sorted. We've got the dryers as well, so you don't need to be hanging up washing in your room either.
Yeah, I remember what I would do a lot of the time is I would sort of go and I would put a load of washing on and then go to the common room, do some studying, set a timer, and then that also gave me a time frame to stop studying, go put my washing in the dryer, and then it sort of breaks it up. It definitely took a lot of stress off for me because when I go on placement, I need to wash my uniform quite regularly, and so being able to just go down there and do a wash, it was so helpful. Really, really took a big load of stress off my shoulders.
So following on from that, what about private accommodation in Southampton and Winchester? Can you give me a bit about what that's like?
Yes, so we have, we're obviously a big city, so we have a lot of accommodation throughout Southampton. We've got a few key sort of more student areas. So we've got Highfield, obviously near the university. We've got Portswood. We've got sort of Bedford Place area. There's a lot of student housing there. And it's definitely something that a lot of students go into private accommodation, and there are so many options available. So we reiterate to everyone, don't panic. You don't need to arrive at university and then start looking for a house like the next day. Definitely take that time to like settle in, get to know your flatmates, get to know your course mates, find those people that you really connect with, and then start to think about accommodation for the next year. But it's definitely not something that you need to worry about. So we operate an accredited scheme called SASH, where we work in partnership with Solent University and the council to provide accredited accommodation for students. So it's sort of like a student version of Rightmove, where we list lots of properties by landlords that meet our standards, and you use your university email address to access it, and then you can look at all of the properties that are available. You can also look for housemates if you've already got a house and you've got a spare room, or you can connect with other potential housemates if you haven't yet found people you want to live with. So that's a really good resource. We also do have private halls throughout the city, so there's lots of options there that you can look at. One of them is Orion Point, which we work with for first year students as well. But then there's also the potential to move back into halls. It's not guaranteed for future years, but we do run a returners campaign that opens sort of in the springtime, and we'll communicate that when you've joined us sort of in your second term. So it's definitely something that you don't need to panic about, don't need to stress about. It's good to be thinking about it already and just considering what those options might be. But there are so many options, and you don't know what you're going to want to do when you arrive here. So don't stress. And we've got our team that are available to support. We have the SASH team, and the Students' Union also have an advice centre. So they're great to talk to if you ever do get concerned about that. Maintenance is included in your fees. So we maintain the buildings throughout the year in the hopes that nothing does go wrong. And then when these things happen, we work to resolve them as quickly as possible. So we let people know so that, no one needs to panic. If there's ever a risk to this residents, then we will make alternative arrangements. So that might be alternative halls accommodation, private partners, and so on. But it's something that, you don't need to worry about, because we will keep that in hand, and we'll get our teams to fix it. And you never know, like you say, you might meet new people in alternative accommodation. But if anyone is in halls and they notice an issue, they can report problems on that Plan On app, which is where we report the maintenance problems. And a member of our team will come out as quickly as possible, especially if it's something like a gas leak, a fire risk and things like that. We're really on it with making sure that our halls are safe and up to standard. And we are covered by the UK Code of Conduct as well. So we maintain that standard, which means that you are rest assured that you're living in a safe accommodation.
Yeah. Amazing.
And we've got lots of things in place. So all of our sites have got 24-hour receptions. There's always someone on site you can speak to. We also have, we do have a night team. We have an on-call team, which Becky is part of. So again, if there was an issue overnight, something unforeseen, then we can action stuff. So it's not a case of residents are just left to their own devices. And that's in addition to the university security teams and the central control room security teams who patrol areas and things like that anyway, just to make sure everything's safe. But even for kind of less kind of major issues, if there was a maintenance issue in your room, then sometimes we do temporarily move someone to another room, or potentially if there's a issue with their shower or something, then we give them access to another shower to use in the meantime, that kind of thing.
To pivot again, like in a little bit of a different direction, obviously with first year you move into accommodation, you have that sort of bus pass. What about sort of second year, third year, fourth year? If you need to move back into accommodation, what does that sort of look like for them?
So if you move back into our accommodation, you'll get all of the benefits that you had in first year. So that's like the standard contracts. And then that does, obviously, if you've got the bus pass, it is a huge saving. But then we also offer for second and third year students, if you're moving out of accommodation, you can get like a discounted deal on your bus pass for future years, which is really handy. And then you're going to be really well connected throughout the city as well, because you're going to be in similar locations to where our hall sites are anyway. They might be areas that you know, they might be areas that you don't know so well. I don't know if either of you stayed close to where you lived in halls.
I am literally right around the corner.
Yeah,
Which is really useful.
that's the area that you liked, and that's
Yep.
ends up being where you stay. What about you?
I moved to Portswood, where a lot of it's pretty much run by the students.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of student accommodation around there, and that's one thing that I will say is really beneficial, is that there is lots of availability
Mhm.
at quite an affordable price here.
Yeah.
Like when I remember I was very fortunate. Like I said, I sort of met my accommodation friends before I actually moved in, and so we were able to kind of say, oh, I think I want to live with you sort of next year, and so we were able to find accommodation quite early on. But I had a lot of friends who, when moving out of accommodation, they moved out maybe like January sort of time, and there was still things that were available. It might not be your first pick, but they're still there. So there really genuinely is no pressure to sort of immediately be like, oh, I want to move in with someone next year. Pick your people smartly. So I
Yeah.
know a lot of houses who have sort of fallen apart because they decided way too early on that they wanted to live with them, and then realized, oh, actually, these aren't people I want to live with.
Yeah. And chances are you'll probably get to know fellow undergraduates whilst you're living in halls for first year. We position undergraduates in flats together and postgraduates in flats together because we understand that the needs are different.
Yep.
You might be like, next door to a group of postgraduates, but you are going to be living in separate flats. In future years, it's completely up to you where you choose to live. So you might decide that actually you have a friend who is a postgraduate who you want to live with, and that might work for you. But we do separate those out in halls of accommodation.
So I'm going to ask the question because it kind of has to be asked. What about pricing? Sort of, what are we looking at? What does it sort of range from? I know that there are sort of different prices with different accommodations, but what is the idea of it?
Okay, so in terms of cost, so it does change year on year, and we always would list all of our prices on the website, and it does depend on kind of what room and site you're at. But roughly speaking, again, currently our kind of lowest cost room is around £135. More expensive rooms, you'd be looking kind of like around £200. But in terms of all the things that we've mentioned, so that's everything included. You're not going to have to pay utilities, Wi-Fi, laundry, as you mentioned, and detergent, things like that. That includes the bus pass. So we try and include as much in it as possible. Make your life easy as possible, but also we hope it provides good value for money as well. If you're in part-catered halls, the cost of the catering is also included in that. So again, looking at so just to actually, we haven't gone over what's included in the part catering, but the part catering, you get breakfast and dinner during the weekdays. Saturday you get brunch, and Sunday you get a Sunday lunch, and that on kind of menus that are updated on a kind of daily and termly basis. And so, the cost of those rooms, that would include the cost of the catering within that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we try and include everything in that, 24-hour receptions and everything like that as well. But we understand there are kind of cost of living, it is a challenge for everybody, but particularly if you're a student and you're living away from home, it can be quite challenging. So again, we try and do as much as we can to make students aware of kind of if there's any offers or things like that maybe elsewhere in the university, or just financial kind of guidance. Student union quite often will offer support in that regard. We have within the student hub, we have the student money champions who again provide lots of information, so you can make informed decisions and kind of understand what's going on. But likewise, if you're living in halls and you do have any concerns, again, you can always speak to people in halls, but also we've got the student hub as well who are available. So offer advice and things like that. In terms of the fees as well, what we do is we break it down into installments. So when you accept your offer, you know what the installments are and when they're due to allow you to budget. And the first one's around October, then the next one's early January, and then depending on how long your contract is, there's one around kind of March, April time, depending on when Easter is. If you're on a 51-week contract, there's also one on the 1st of July. But it's in line with when loans and maintenance grants and things like that come out. So again, it allows you to budget. But also in terms of finances as well, as Becky mentioned earlier, potentially might be looking at kind of part-time jobs and things like that to supplement it, kind of your maintenance loans and things like that. So additionally, there's lots of options in that regard. You can work as a student ambassador. So got a vested interest in this because we use lots of student ambassadors for our open days and visit days, but also we've got lots of opportunities to kind of work with the university as well. And again, that's doubly beneficial because you can say your insight to prospective students to let you know what's going on. So I guess I've kind of covered a lot there, but in terms of the cost, that's kind of generally what the cost is, but we try and include everything we can and also offer support just generally for kind of financial matters as well, just so that you're informed and know what's going on.
I think a really good resource to kind of look at everything that's included. You've obviously got the University of Southampton website with all of the details about, what's included in those fees, and that includes the contents insurance as well as your Wi-Fi and your bills. But also we've got a website for our residents called Halls Life. And that's got lots of information about your accommodation, your fees, sort of what living at the halls is like. We also have a halls guide for each of our different sites, but it's also got all of the events that we run in halls, events that are open to our residents. It's got our recipes from the cookery school, ways to book onto the cookery school, insights into exam tips, different things that are going on site, potentially just a little bit of a make the most of Southampton sort of guidance on there. So that's a really good tool to use to sort of look at the room options, but also see what actually being a resident is like and get that balance of planning ahead for the practical things, but also thinking about planning your lifestyle too.
That sounds really useful, to be honest.
And important to mention that the standard contract is 40 weeks, isn't it, or something? And it's kind of aligned with the uni.
38 and 41 weeks,
38.
probably the most applicable for undergraduates. 38 sort of finishes a little bit earlier, so you might have a bit of a gap if you're going into a private house. The 41 week is almost perfectly aligned with private contracts, so you can potentially move straight in. Obviously that will depend on the house that you end up picking. 51 weeks tends to be for postgraduates, but if for some reason you choose that you want to stay in halls over the summer, we have summer accommodation available that you can apply for, and that's really good if you've got a placement, or if you are doing a part-time job and potentially want to keep that going over the summer months.
I know the 40-week one gave me 5 days where I could move all my stuff over before I had to give my keys back.
Being a medic student, I don't know if you or any of your kind of fellow course mates, but if you do have a placement and you're not sure where that is, then we always recommend that you apply for a 38 or 41 week contract, and then we do offer extensions. So obviously we're aware of kind of academic needs of certain courses, and so we do factor that in. So that is something that, again, if you're a medical, you might have a placement in Southampton, but it may be elsewhere. So rather than get a contract for a period, then you might not be in Southampton. We are geared up for that. And likewise, if you do return to halls, I guess one of the benefits, if you have a 38 or 41 week contract, you don't have to pay for those summer months, and then you can move into hall in September. So it just saves you some money there and potential accommodation you might not need. So, but again, we provide lots of information support around the times that these coming up. There's a housing fair that the SUSU run that we also attend. So there's lots that we do in terms of accommodation for future years, and just generally knowing what your options are in those regards.
It's also worth noting that although those 38 and 41 weeks mean that you need to move out for summer, like winter break, Easter break, you are able to stay in your room. You don't need to pack up anything. You don't need to go anywhere. Like, that is your room for the duration of your contract. So it means that if you want to go on holiday during those breaks, so you don't have to worry about moving everything into sort of storage or anything like that.
It was definitely useful for myself having placement, like being able to just sort of know that I have a place where I can stay and not have to be too concerned about where I need to go, where I need to move to, was definitely really beneficial.
I mean, covering those costs as well, that 135 to 200 a week. Did you have a part-time job to cover stuff?
I did a lot of work with the university. For me, it was extremely beneficial because I'm quite passionate about nursing. I love the course here. I did a lot of research into sort of other universities, this university, trying to figure out what I needed. And for me, nursing in Southampton has been incredible. And I love being able to sort of go out on an open day and do those talks where you sort of get to say to people, trust me, this university is good. I might be getting paid to say this, but as a student, know that this is the truth, because often it's very different hearing from a lecturer or a representative from the university instead of an actual student voice. And so being able to sort of be that voice for a lot of students and get that sort of information out there was quite important for me. And it's also given me a lot of practice with public speaking and being able to speak in front of a large audience, which I very much was not comfortable doing before I came to university. And it allowed me to sort of develop a part of me that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to. Not to mention also they pay really well for the work that you do. And I honestly, I would recommend, if you do get the opportunity to be an ambassador for the university, I would definitely recommend doing it. You get to develop a lot of personal skills, as well as hard skills as well. And so that's mostly what I did, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it helped a lot.
100%. I remember coming to uni and I was so unsociable. I couldn't talk
Yep.
to anyone. Actually, it was that flat dynamic, you're forced to speak to people when you live to them, which for me was a very good thing because I got on with them so well.
Could not agree
But,
more.
and you come out your shell when you come to uni and start speaking to people. And that's so important in getting a job, after uni.
I've spoken to ambassadors who say that they don't actually talk to the people on their course. Like they get to sort of third year and they realize there's someone that's been there the whole time that they've never even met before. But they know people in their accommodation. They've been an ambassador. They've spoken to hundreds of people on a visit day.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like at that point, it's not competence. It's just like who you happen to interact with. And then, you build all these extra connections.
100%. And you speak to someone that you never really thought, you didn't know their position. Like a lot of the time on open days, there'll be people dotting about who are like higher representation of the university. And then they'll come to you and say, hey, I really liked how you spoke in that. Can you come do this instead? And then you build those connections, and it builds a lot of confidence, I would say, like, especially sort of being someone who was very shy, very reserved, had a very small friend group back in secondary school, like to come into university and now doing something like this, like you said, I never ever would have thought that I would sort of be able to do this as like a younger kid. I think university and accommodation is so beneficial for that. And like you said, it just brings you out your shell. It forces you to be, because if you're not, then you're kind of stuck in your room and it's not as fun.
Yeah, I think that forcing this, as you say, and as you say, maybe takes you slightly out of your comfort zone, but then people do adapt and kind of, I guess, do learn new skills and build those friendships. Also, I just want to pick up, you mentioned in terms of working as ambassador and actually giving your insight, and as you say, that is that student to student or peer to peer kind of information and guidance is really valuable. And as you say, a prospective student, or a current student, you're much more likely to understand or be interested in something that a current student's saying than, again, if I was telling you, for example. But we very much take that in, but like we do internships each year, and we do lots of what we call like co-design work, so that we actually get the student input, so that with our communications that students are saying, oh, actually, what is it you wanted to know? What do you need? And also it feeds into, I mentioned we've done refurbishment of common spaces and things like that. So a lot of the work we do, it does get that student insight, and actually, not just assuming that, oh, okay, we work at university, we know what's going on. Actually, the students are always going to know better than us. So again, not just a paid experience, but there's lots of benefits in terms of, from our perspective as well, is getting that insight from students, as whether it be an open day, whether it be a visit day, whether it be one of these co-design projects that we work on. So again, that's fed into our Halls Life brochures, and we've worked with students on that for the last few years, and they do an internship over the Easter that then feeds into the printed guides that we do. So just because no, it's not exactly the same topic, but it just reminded me and thought it was kind of something useful just to highlight that, again, very much the student experience and current students' feedback feeds into them what we do. And we do surveys every year as well, just to see how people feel about things. And part of the reason we do the free laundry, for example, now, well, not free, but it's included in your contract, and the auto-dosing detergent was based on feedback from students who didn't like the previous system, used an app and things like that. So the student experience and student insight is very important to what we do.
And that co-design thing's really the full circle, because
It is.
the ambassador's getting paid to be there. I'm part of that. And then we're helping improve the university accommodation and using the money to pay off our university accommodation.
It's
Win-win.
it's such a nice full circle. So if you're in catered accommodation, are you allowed to make your own food still, or are you forced into the sort of, you have to attend the meal plans?
Yeah, so there is some flexibility. So if you live in part-catered accommodation, you do have access to a pantry kitchen. So again, you can, with a fridge, freezer, and so you can make meals outside of times, and you've still got area where you can store food. So in terms of, there's meals within your halls, but there is the flexibility that your daily allocation is actually on your student ID card. So you can swipe that at the part-catered halls, but also if you wanted to use it at some of the catering outlets at the university campuses, you can do so with that as well. So it gives you a bit more flexibility about where you eat your meals. So you don't have to have breakfast and dinner every day. You could use it to have lunch or whatever, depending on what you're doing and how it works. Also, if you have an early start, you can arrange to have a takeaway breakfast and things like that, just so you don't miss out on any meals. So there's a few things there, just gives you a bit more flexibility, so you're not always kind of tied down to having to be at Highfield Hall for breakfast and dinner every day, but you can still use your allocation at other areas. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a wide range of foods, and they change the menu regularly as well, so don't feel like you're going to come down and have the same dinner every day for like week after week. It regularly changes as well. So yeah, there's a bit of flexibility there. You can make meals outside of your kind of the catered times as well. So again, you're not kind of tied down to that structure all the time. Yeah,
Amazing.
Well, that's good, because I don't know about you as a university student, but every day is different at uni.
It very much is.
In a good way. I like.
Yeah, it really it helps you adapt as a person, I would say, because when you actually go into the real world, not every day is going to be the same. Every day can be slightly different, and university really sort of is that middle step where you're still being helped a little bit, like you're still being guided where you need to go, but some days you might finish at like 12 o'clock and it's great. You have the rest of the afternoon off. You can sort of arrange when you want to have your meals. But then other days you finish at like 7, 8 o'clock because you have to revise for exams, and it's a completely different day entirely. So yeah, I think that could definitely help, being able to make meals outside of those a lot of times.
extra benefit, you don't like doing washing up, or
That would be a massive benefit.
if you can't cook as well. So yeah, and there's benefits in that regard as well. Saves a bit of time there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's assume that we've got in, we've applied, and we're going to move in September to accommodation. So I know that was definitely quite daunting. You know, that's only natural for every student to be a bit daunting about moving away from home and moving to student accommodation. So what's that first week like? You know, how can you best get rid of those nerves that are unfounded, sort of thing?
I think the first thing to remember is everyone else is in exactly the same position. And once you realize that, it takes so much of the pressure off, because everyone's meeting everyone for the first time. So we have our move-in days. Most of our sites spread over a couple of days. So you pick a slot that works for you once you've got your you've got your offer, you've done your induction, and then you book that slot. So you do all your packing, you'll arrive at your time slot, you'll come and collect your keys, and it will be one of our team there with a friendly face, a smile, ask you how your journey was, because some people obviously are going to come from a long way. And then you can go and get settled into your room and start to meet your flatmates. Now, they might arrive at the beginning of the weekend, at the end of the weekend, so you might have a slightly quieter flat for a couple of days if you arrive very early, or you might be thrown straight into the deep end if you arrive last. There are lots of events going on throughout that whole first week. So we've got the Freshers Week with all of the events, which I'm sure everyone's already heard about and is excited for. So there's lots of things going on, and you can explore all of the opportunities on the SUSU website. But we also have events going on in halls as well. So we've got Res Life assistants who work in halls. They're current or former residents who have experience of the sites, and they put on events like games nights, quiz nights, pizza nights, which are always very popular. They do craft evenings as well. And they'll kind of get everyone together, do a bit of a meet and greet, help you meet people. Those are normally held in the common spaces as well, so you'll get to know your site a little bit better too. And I'd also recommend in that first week, you'll get your halls guide, which has a map on the back of it of your hall site, kind of familiarising yourself with your site so you know where things are. And then when your course starts the next week, you can really get stuck into it. And then you can sign up to lots of different events and societies with the Freshers Fair. So that's organised by the Students' Union. And then we also have our Res Life Fair, which takes place at our hall sites. So we've got one at Glen Eyre, one at Wessex Lane, and one at Mayflower, which all students can attend who are in halls. And that's an opportunity to meet the services that are really going to support you throughout your time at the university. So that could be the local GP, it could be our student wellbeing team. We have people from the gym there helping you secure your membership. There's normally some sort of like challenge involved as well. So it's a great opportunity to meet those services, but also everyone else at your hall site is going to be there as well. So you can get to know more people too. And then you're properly into university, and there's going to be lots that you're getting to know throughout your time as well. So you don't need to learn everything in those first couple of weeks. But it's a really exciting time. And I would recommend just kind of diving in, doing the things you want to do. Don't feel pressured into doing the things you don't want to do, because you're now at university, you're an adult, this is your lifestyle. So you can kind of pick and choose what you're excited about.
Yeah. How were yours experiences when you moved in?
So I think that there was quite a lot of different experiences that people had. I personally, I'm not hugely into clubbing. I'm not a massive fan of going on nights out. And so I sort of tried to attend the things which were more focused around daytime sort of activities. One thing that I would say that I would definitely recommend is go to the Freshers' Fair. You get a lot of free stuff. And that is very beneficial when you're first sort of moving in. And it gives you a lot of like coupons and vouchers. And I remember one that I got was like for a free waffle at this place. And so me and one of my housemates went like the next day and just like talked and like sort of got to know each other a little bit more. And so it does facilitate you to do a lot of these sort of smaller activities outside of the university. But yeah, I could not recommend more to go to these sort of events. Like, even if it's not night out or if it's not the Freshers' Fair and nights out, like just do all of it that you feel as if you can do. Like you said, don't feel pressured to. Make sure you take time for yourself, adjust. It's a very stressful period. I know that there were definitely some nights where I had to just sort of sit down and be like, okay, I'm at university now. This is different. This is new. But I then have to remind myself that it's okay. Like I said, everyone's in this position. Everyone's feeling nervous. Everyone's stressed out. And sometimes saying that to someone can really make a big difference. Like going to see your housemate and being like, I am absolutely pooping myself right now. Like, this is terrifying. And they'll probably respond with, oh my God, I feel the exact same way. This is absolutely terrifying. And that then creates a little bit of a bond, takes some weight off your shoulders. But for me, I just tried to do everything and anything and really sort of get involved. Remember there's a plant fair that happened, went along to that because why not? And I have my tree that I got there now till this day. But the little things go a long way, I would say.
Yeah, Freshers' Fair. What an amazing way to get up with your flat and go and enjoy an amazing event. So we've talked about a lot today, but what would you say the sort of things that the prospective students should remember for coming into accommodation?
In terms of accommodation, let's say we've got a number of different sites, so try and familiarise yourself that. You can go on our website, there's lots of information on there. We also have videos. You can also check out our Halls Life website where we've got images of all the different room types, things like that, just to give you an idea of what we offer. I guess one of the key things is actually when you come to apply, if you don't remember anything else, but the 1st of July deadline for getting your accommodation application in, it's all done via an online portal, so that's a kind of key thing to take away. And just generally speaking, that, you know, if you do have any questions or queries, you can always contact the Student Hub about accommodation. And I say there's a lot to think about and it can be quite daunting, but we, I say, put a lot of effort into trying to make life as convenient and make that transition from living at home and to living in halls as smooth as possible. So there's lots of information out there, but if there's anything specific you need to know, you can always get hold of us if needs be. And if you can, I know it's not possible for everyone, try and attend a visit day or an open day. We do have halls open that you can have a look around, and it might not be the exact room that you'll end up living with, but it gives you a good idea in just terms of what the layout of a flat is like, how it works, and you'll get to speak to student ambassadors and staff as well and answer any questions you may have. And it will just give you a feel for the city, give a feel for halls. So if I was to recommend anything, I would recommend those things.
And that is all we have time for on today's episode. Thank you, Jean, Karl and Becky for joining us. I wish I'd known this all when I was starting researching university accommodation. I hope our discussion today has helped some of you in just the smallest way with what can be a daunting process, moving away from home, but also helped with some of the burning questions and put your mind at rest and help you feel more informed when making these choices. Maybe even helped your parents and supporters too. If you have any questions or topics you want our future podcast episodes to cover, drop us a comment and we'll see what we can do. Good luck with everything this year brings, and we hope to see you on another episode of the Southampton Sessions.